Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Hi, my name is Rosalie Olmsted. I'm WiCyS Strategic Partner Coordinator, and it's a pleasure to have you all here today with WiCyS Strategic Partner Amazon Web Services. But before we get started and I pass it over to Ina, I'd like to give you a quick overview of the WiCyS organization. We often go by our acronym WiCyS because that is exactly what we are, a global cyber sisterhood. WiCyS is a 501c3 nonprofit with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. Our community is made up of over 10,000 members in 103 countries. We have 72 professional affiliates and over 311 student chapters throughout the world. We provide a diverse initiatives and skills development programs, such as our book club, leadership series, vulnerability disclosure program, Create Your Leading Edge, the SANS Executive Cybersecurity Program, mentorship, and so much more. Additionally, all job openings from our strategic partners are available on the Job Board++. We owe all of our initiatives and programs a big thanks to our strategic partners who fund us year round. Our tier one partners being 3M, Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon University, Cisco, Ford, Google, Lockheed Martin, Optum, Sandia National Labs, SANS, and SentinelOne. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout today's webinar. Please type them in that question box below, and Ina will answer them during the Q&A session at the end. And if time permits and we run out, please feel free to continue the conversation with Ina on LinkedIn. And lastly, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the WiCyS newsletter to stay up to date on our upcoming events and programs that we are launching throughout the year. You can find it at wicys.org in the upper right-hand corner. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ina with AWS.
Hello, everyone. I am very happy to connect with you today and discuss the topic of customers of security. And we're going to talk about very Amazonian mechanism of working backwards and how we could apply it to creating culture of security and how can we speak with the customers of security in their language. I manage a compliance automation team, part of AWS Security Assurance Services, where we help our regulated customers to build securely on AWS and prepare them for audits and attestation. And a big part of my job is, and my team's job, is to help our customers automate compliance operations so that they could gain more visibility and can create continuous compliance processes in their organizations. All right, so today we are going to talk about Amazon working backwards process and how we could apply the same process that brought to life Amazon Prime, AWS, Cloud, Alexa, Amazon Echo. How can we apply the same principles to build culture of security? How can we identify who are the real customers of security? How do we know that our security processes are successful? How do we measure the success? And how do we speak with our customers of security in their language? All right, so imagine we are flying and we are observing the landscape, 1,000-foot view. What does it mean building the culture of security? Let me put it in perspective. 5 years ago, the trend was stop relying on a magic tool, stop looking for the easy button, instead build the culture of security. Today, in 2025, it takes about 51 seconds for the threat actor to progress laterally on your network. We need advanced security capabilities. We need to automate with AI, and we need to build a culture of security so that our security processes actually seamlessly aligned with our business objectives across organization. Easy to say, But what's really needed? Where do we start? How do we cut through the noise? How do we prioritize? It's a lot to think about. Imagine you're an artist. You have fine brushes. You have a variety of different colors. You want to create a masterpiece. But you have to do it in the welding gear. You have to do it with those heavy welding gloves. And by the way, your visibility is not that great in that welding gear either. That's how developers feel when they need to innovate, but they're constrained by the traditional security processes and those restrictive security controls. How can we apply mechanisms to build culture of security? So at Amazon, we start with a customer and we work backwards. This is the same process that brought Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime started with a simple question: how can we make online shopping fast and easy for the customer? And with this process, AWS Cloud and Amazon Alexa and Echo and Amazon Go Store came to life. So what is the process? How do we do it? We start by listening. Ever heard a saying, a definition of a good doctor? Who is a good doctor? The doctor who listens. When we listen, we really earn trust because we try to understand. So we listen to identify who are our customers, the customers of security. And then we identify their pain point. We define the scope. With limited resources, with limited budget and time, what can we prioritize? What can we address? And then we write, part of our working backwards process is writing a mock press release of a solution that we are trying to invent. And then we try to anticipate frequently asked questions. And by going through this process of defining a solution and writing a mock press release and then trying to answer anticipated questions, we refine the process. And then we create a POC, a proof of concept, to test and iterate and evaluate. And then after that, once we are happy with the results, we scale the solution to really solve the problem. All right, we are flying over the landscape. We see the forest, 100-foot view. We ask 5 customer questions. Those are five customer questions, part of working backwards, Amazon working backwards process. Who is the customer and what insights do we have about them? Who are our customers of security? Number 2, what is the prevailing customer problem? What is our opportunity to solve it? What insights do we have? What data do we have that would inform us about this? And what could be the solution that would bring the most important benefit to the customer to solve their pain point? How would we describe the end-to-end experience with such solution? How do we know that we are successful? What data would tell us? What data would prove us that our solution actually brings the outcome that we desire? All right, so let's go through those questions one by one. Who is the customer and what insights do we have about them? So our typical customers are product users. They want to use a product with the security features embedded in it, basically secure by design. Our business stakeholders, they would like to have security posture that is aligned to their business outcomes. that support their return on investment. CISO and security architects, they want to develop processes and mechanisms that are not just dispersed processes, but they aligned across the organization. And again, they're aligned to the business outcomes. Infrastructure and ops, application developers, they're all part of the decentralized model of security. All right. Question number 2. What is a prevailing customer problem or an opportunity? And what data informs this? So traditional centralized security, the main challenge, it is perceived as a department of no. We want the security to be an enablement. So moving from the centralized security to decentralized security brings some new problems. With decentralized security, very often it feels like disconnected processes across organization. When we work with many organizations, we feel that we work with dysfunctional family. RACI is not well defined. We can't identify the owners, the true owners of the application, the true owners of the security of the application. And there are walls and silos, lack of collaboration, lack of alignment. So what is the opportunity? The opportunity is to try to speak the different languages of the different customers of security. So let's try it here. What if we say 85% of our customers want to reduce identity and access management privilege escalation by 15% in 30 days? Wow, that sounds pretty technical. What does it really mean? Do you get it? Well, what if I translate it into 85 out of 100 of your neighbors think that their house keys have been duplicated, and only 10 of them really ready to change the locks? Well, how does that align with the overall security of your neighborhood? Does it align with the business outcomes of the organization? That's a question to think about. All right, so we are in the wood. There are different customers of security represented by different trees in the wood. Let's look at the different languages. So the executive language. The executive language is about prioritization and aligning security mechanisms to business risks and business outcomes. As AWS consultants, when we work with the executives and we offer security assessments, what do we hear? Well, security assessment, that's nice, but where do we prioritize? Where do we start? They want their security investments to be aligned with return on investment in their programs, passing audits, really creating the maturity of their security organization. Now, when we talk to the architects, what the architects are interested in? They want to know what works collectively for other organizations, what works for other applications. They think about systems, patterns, trade-offs. They think about shifting left. What shifting left really means? We've noticed that not everybody really understands it. So by shifting left, imagine you write code, then you deploy code into the application, right? Then you do regression testing, then your application goes live. Where do you think it's easier to find problems and remediate them? It's easier to shift left, back to the code, and find those misconfigurations in the code. and then apply continuous compliance to monitor your deployed infrastructure, to monitor your application for any kind of changes in the application. So we want to prevent any kind of misconfigurations and before we are forced to detect or remediate anything. And that's what architects are really interested to create in their environments. Now, when we speak to the developers are interested in understanding what good looks like in terms of libraries of secure infrastructure, libraries of templates, of modules. But not only that, they're also interested in shifting left with the security as code, shifting left with the controls, something like policy as code that could scan the infrastructure as they develop. Because even if you have those blueprints, even if you have those templates and modules of secure components described in infrastructure as a code, how do you ensure that those are used and not modified? And that's where you could apply security as code, compliance as code, policy as code that would scan your code, identify if the configurations have been applied, such as encryption at rest, encryption in transit, least privileged identity and access management policies, and so on. When you translate security needs to different languages of your organization, from executives to architects to developers, you could really ensure that your security culture is aligned on the security processes and really operates as a symphony orchestra. That's the North Star. All right, so going back to the working backwards questions, we went through two questions. The first one was, who is the customer and what is their main pain point? And the second one was how can we identify what solution and what measures could be applied to solving this problem? But what is the most important benefit? What is the end-to-end experience and the most important customer benefit that the solution could bring? So let's take an example. We talk to our customers about zero trust. What does zero trust really mean to different customers of security? So when we talk to the executives, to the CISO, zero trust means for them risk mitigation, passing the audit. What zero trust mean for the architects? That could mean API security. That means could mean authentication and authorization processes for the APIs, just-in-time access. What does it mean for the developers? For the developers, it could mean infrastructure updates. It could mean code modification. It could mean more work, short term, to get gains long term. Now, staying with the example of zero trust, how would we describe the solution experience to the customer? Well, the solution experience described to the executives would be that would reduce their operations risk. That could reduce their operations time by, let's say, 20%. In terms of budget, that could save them, let's say, 2 million, substituting manual evaluation of their authorization and authentication processes with automation. If we will describe it to architects, That would mean creating scalable authorization and authentication in their application, and that would give them ability to automate. Now, if we describe to the developers what benefit zero trust brings them, it could mean smoother access to their applications for the developers or the end user. And lastly, the fifth question in the 5 customer questions: how will we define and measure success? So ultimately, the success of any security culture is freedom to innovate within strong security posture. Remember where we started with the example that imagine you are creating art. You have fine brushes and you have thick welding gloves. Well, the freedom to innovate seamlessly and not to worry about security because it's embedded in every process, in every application. That's the true definition and measure of success for the security culture. How effectively can we identify, prevent, detect, respond, and recover from security event? That's another measure of success. So example of it could be, let's say, 50% risk reduction calculated through the security maturity model of the organization. 20%, 25% faster implementation of the security programs. 40% user adoption. 60% cross-team collaboration. Those are all just sample metrics of how one could measure success of their security programs in the organization. All right, we often hear security is everyone's job. There are many different teams in the organization that are involved in the security. And that's where it's not just automating protections with AI. It's really that there are security champions in every team, in every organization. Okay, so let's go through the example. There are many things, many factors that go into creating a security use case. One of such examples is when we talk to our customers of AWS who want to build securely, and they often ask, how do we prioritize? How do we prioritize what to protect? An example of this is a risk-based prioritization. So what is the crown jewel to protect in your organization? Be it sensitive data, be it intellectual property. What vulnerabilities do you have, and how do you relate them to threats and risks? Sometimes customers ask us, well, we have 10,000 vulnerabilities related to our software packages. Should we first remediate all the critical vulnerabilities? Well, let's think about it. Where those systems are located? What is sitting on those systems? What are in those databases? Is it sensitive data? Is it the crown jewel of the organization? What are all the controls around it? What is the likelihood? What is the threat that this vulnerability is going to be exploited? What are the compensating controls you have that might reduce the risk of that threat? And what is the risk? What do you have to lose if this gets exploited? So if you put all of this into perspective, it really helps you to prioritize and to build your security use case. Now, one of the ways to do it is to do threat model. Threat modeling is something that is not easy to do, and a lot of organizations have really hard time with it. And that's where security champions really come to help. security champions in every organization could really be those security guardians who could show what good looks like. At Amazon, we have security guardians on the application security team that hold office hours for those who need to do threat modeling, let's say, of our internal applications. And they have samples. They have samples of the flow diagrams. They have samples of threat models. And they could really guide other teams and show them what good looks like. And that is really helpful. That really takes uncertainty and fear from creating those threat models. And obviously, teams iterate and make it better. But sharing those best practices and samples between team members or even across the teams also helps with collaboration, helps with creating that culture of security. How do you build those security champions? How do you develop those security guardians? On AWS, we have many resources that could help you with training and customizing cloud journey and security journey on AWS. That ranges from skill assessment and personalized training plans to specific training or help from AWS Security Assurance Services, AWS ProServe, and obviously there are industry-recognized certifications and credentials. All right, so with that, I would like to summarize what we've discussed. We've discussed that current landscape really calls for advanced security protections, automation with AI, and building strong security culture that ensures that your security mechanisms, security processes are effective across organization, and that you don't just automate and collect a lot of information that cannot be processed. How do you build such a security culture? There are two approaches to this, and those could be complementary. It's not one or the other. You could build security culture as a customer service, where you really approach your customers of security from executives to architects to developers to end users, and you try to translate security processes speaking their language so it's digestible by everybody, and then that leads to your security culture working as a symphony orchestra with really aligned processes and collaboration across the teams. So working backwards, really listening to your customer, identifying their main pain points, talking to your customers in their language, creating solutions, and measuring the effectiveness of the solutions creates that security culture. Thank you very much. And now I would like to look at the questions. All right. So first question, looking ahead, what are some emerging trends or challenges in decentralized security that you are anticipating? So having too much information, right? With automation, and automation with AI ML solves some of this, where we could look at the behavioral analytics. I mean, we see some of the customers that are still creating alerting through the email and Slack notifications, and that really creates a lot of notification fatigue, and the security teams just cannot cut through that noise, and those Slack channels or those emails are filed and not even looked at, and there are not enough people and not enough budget or time to analyze all the security controls. That's where AI ML really comes to help, but also preventing preventing before detecting or remediating, really putting those guardrails in place so that you really reduce the number of detections. That's really where decentralized security shines, and having all of those guardrails embedded in every security in every business application, so that developers own the security of their business application and can monitor the security posture of their application. All right, next question. For those who have started implementing a more decentralized security model, what's one unexpected benefit you've observed? You've observed. I don't know if it's an unexpected benefit, but we've noticed that developers really become subject matter expert on security. One of the issues with kind of like old style security teams is that a lot of them are not coders, non-coders. So they're well versed in policies and standards, but translating it to the actual implementation is very difficult. And that's the challenge of not speaking the language of developers who really live in code. So with decentralized security, as those as the developers become security champions, they start to really understand security, and they are able then to speak the language of compliance and audit. So I guess that's an unexpected benefit. All right. I don't see any more questions. All right, Rosalie, do you have anything to add?
Hi, Ina. I just wanted to first say thank you so much for joining everyone today and the viewers and providing such a great information on this topic. I want to give everyone one last chance. If there's any other questions they'd like to submit or connect with Ina in any way. I actually had a question, and I hope you don't mind if I ask.
Please.
How what is your like when you got into cybersecurity, did you come into it in a very traditional background, like by getting, going to college in that route, or did you discover this in a sort of a roundabout way?
So that's a great question. I have a very non-traditional path to cybersecurity. My degree is in electrical engineering and applied physics, and my master's
Okay.
was actually in micro electromechanical systems, MEMS, in nanotechnology, which really taught me a great attention to the details and experimenting. I think that's the main outcome of that type of training. And then I did a mid-career change where I worked a lot with Linux, doing electrical engineering, and I got involved with security processes of Linux systems, and that really pivoted me into encryption and security key management, secure key management, and I became very interested in cybersecurity. I actually took training through SANS and
Amazing.
other certifications, became a CSSP, and pivoted into cybersecurity.
Oh, that's amazing. I find it so fascinating to hear everyone's journey into cybersecurity because out of every field I think a person could go into in their career, cybersecurity has the most diverse background of individuals. Like you see these shifts coming where someone is coming back with, I've seen nurses, the medical field, education, and they're transferring over to cybersecurity. And what you bring to the table with having a different background and it not being your first, like the troubleshooting aspect and how that transferred, I always like hearing because I think it's encouraging for others to hear that paths can change. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I did see a question came in while we were chatting, and I would like to give them a chance to ask it. So the question is, do you anticipate any issues or trends in the near future?
Well, definitely. With Gen AI, I anticipate a lot of changes, a lot of new trends. Adversaries are using Gen AI. Threat actors are using Gen AI, and we need to respond with the same speed. And that's
Mhm.
where responding using AI ML processes is the way of future. And that's where I was trying to underline that if 5 years ago people were kind of saying either or, now there is no such thing. We do need to have those advanced capabilities
Yeah.
and automate everything, because everything could fail anytime, at any moment. But really understanding the processes and making sure that those are effective, and knowing that you're not getting garbage in and garbage out,
Mm.
that's where culture of security, and specifically decentralized culture of security, where you have those developers being the owners of the security of their application, but at the same time also aligning it to the business outcomes, is very important.
Very important. And I think you've really hit on that. AI used to be a and or scenario, and that's definitely not the case anymore. I don't think that's going anywhere in the world. And next question is, for those who are just starting in this field, what would be a topic or area to look into first? Do you have any guidance for that question?
So I would say, even with AI, every domain of cybersecurity still holds its importance, be it network protection, network segmentation, data protection, be it identity and access management, application security. Everything is, I would say, equally important. As we design more sophisticated applications, as we design automation, that's where working in alignment, where, yes, you have different owners of different domains of the
Mm,
security, but they're not siloed. I think that still holds true. Um, I would say with all the certifications that we have, those soft skills that help you collaborate and listen and earn trust by really understanding the other party, is equally important.
it is. And I think soft skills get under recognized when people are looking to develop their skill sets. They don't think those maybe are as crucial to the conversation as they are. So I like that you hit on that because it's a key part of any role you're in. Um,
Yeah.
would you like to weigh in on this question is where do you see women taking the lead in cybersecurity over the next few years?
Um, I definitely do see more women coming in cybersecurity roles.
Mm,
Um, and that's where, like, I see a question: how can we break into this field and pivot from more
yeah,
technical role? And there would be an equal question:
perfect.
how can we pivot into this field from a less technical role? And that's where uh, Amazonian principle: learn and be curious, right?
Mm,
You could have more soft skill background and be curious and learn. And with AI, I think you could really become you could code, be a non-coder and code, right? And that's where you could be very technical, and you could help AI write business justification, right, and coach you on how to present your ideas. um, I don't see barriers anymore.
yeah. Which is wonderful to hear. And I think it's also great to see that we can use AI in our, workplace and to help streamline processes and to build it that way, but we can also use it to advance ourselves in our careers. So I like that. That's a good point to be hitting on. Um, Trying to read through all of them.
Mhm.
So we have an individual that's actually going to be joining Amazon as a security engineer, as an intern, and they want to know if you have any advice for them to be successful.
Yes, absolutely. So I hit on learn and be curious.
Mm,
But with that prioritization comes as well. So we want to create a technical breadth, but also dive deep and create the depth. And that's where I would advise joining Amazon. Amazon is like a candy store where you could you could take a class every day or a few classes every day, but really choosing the focus area and developing depths, technical depths. I think that might be something to look into.
Amazing. And then another question, do you think that the AWS Cloud Practitioner is a good certificate is a good starting point?
So I would take any AWS certificate as a starting point. AWS certificate does not, or any certificate for that matter, any industry certificate, does not define you as a subject matter expert. That's where experience really is a definition of being a subject matter expert. So any certificate is a starting point. And yes, I definitely suggest to start with cloud practitioner, but don't stop there, right? Take the next one. Take solution architect associate or one of the specialty certificates, but treat it as a starting point to really get you started on that experience.
It really is a good to have and never stop learning. It's my grandfather, it was the biggest thing he taught me when I was growing up was when you graduate or when you get your certificates done, he's like, you're not done. And he's like, you have right now a license to learn. And it is a statement I've lived by, and it's never failed me in life. Always being curious, always wanting to, continue advancing and growing. So that's, I think, the best advice anyone can receive.
I love it. License to learn.
Yeah.
I might steal that.
I recommend it's been my own mantra and it's never failed. Where when you go into something with that mindset and it's not, now I know everything, and it's more in a humbling position where it's like, now I'm here to learn and there's always something I can learn in a situation. It really does help.
Yeah, 100%.
And then next one is someone coming from a legal background. Do you think their transferable skills would align well with compliance and risk management?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at those compliance standards and regulations. First of all, a lot of compliance frameworks are really, it's a law, like privacy laws, for example. HIPAA reads like a law. So understanding, having that legal background and be able to understand that almost on, in fact, not almost, but legal language of regulations is a very great skill to have. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And do you have any recommendations for someone who doesn't have the work experience in cybersecurity, but has gone to the efforts to get all of, a fair amount of certifications? And what would be a good role to get them to a cloud security role? Like, what's a good entry level role to really get their foot in the door? Because I think you and I both know that's always the biggest hurdle to get there. It's once you got to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll give you an example from my own experience. I started playing with the cloud, and I really wanted to get into the cloud. And at my kids' school, they were struggling because they did not have a library, a tracking software to track checkouts, library checkouts for the school library. And I found a cloud-based application. It was Linux-based, so I had some Linux skills, but it was basically a cloud-based application where I could apply my Linux skills, and I volunteered on my own time to create a project like that. And then when I applied to the jobs that I wanted, it doesn't matter where you get this experience. Is it a volunteering experience or is it experience where you were paid salary for? As long as you could describe your experience, be it your home project or being it work project, that proves and gives and earns trust from whoever interviews you that you have those skills.
I agree. And it's also just showing that initiative, and it shows another skill that you have as an individual where you're bringing, that drive to learn and to try something new and being able to complete projects, even in your, like on the personal side, because I think that just shows that it's something you're passionate about. So that's, and that's really interesting. And seeing a flaw or a fault in a system and being like, nope, I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you feel growing a portfolio on GitHub will help when applying for jobs in any tech field, along with collecting all the certificates as possible?
Yes, yes, it does help. But I mean, growing portfolio, if you're just showing check-ins and checkouts on GitHub, that's not enough. You need to be able to speak about your work, what you've
Mm,
done, what you achieved.
yeah,
But as I said, any kind of project, be it learning and experimenting on your own time or for work, gives you the skills. So it I mean, you can count on somebody just seeing your activity on GitHub. That's
yeah.
not good enough. You need to be able to to show the results
Mm.
and to speak about it.
Be able to, stand up and defend and go into detail and explain your work.
Yes.
So we're going to circle back a little bit to the lawyer question. Someone was just asking for a little bit of clarification on any tips for lawyers, specifically communicating with more technical folks.
Yeah. So let's go back to the working backwards. First principle.
Yeah.
Principle is listen. Right.
Mm,
So you could be non-technical and speaking in a non-technical language, and that's what a lot of our program managers and technical program managers do. They translate technical to non-technical and vice versa. But really listening and you're trying to identify what is the problem, right? And working backwards from that. And people will fill you in on all of those abbreviations and technical jargon if you ask.
yeah. It is a skill and I think listening is a great first step with it. Now, there's been a lot of questions about just getting into cybersecurity and any advice you have. As a mid-career changer, were there any resources that you took advantage of? You spoke on SANS, and maybe some of our viewers missed that part. Were there any other tools you used to really just help grow your knowledge and get your foot in the door with this part, switching into this career?
So taking certifications, right? That gives you that starting point and a lot of references. And again, you kind of focus on the specific area that you might want to develop the depths,
Hmm.
going deeper and actually looking at those references and trying things out. There are open source softwares. I mean, sometimes even enterprise level softwares give you the trial license. So trying things hands on really helps. So it's not just academic knowledge. Um, it's you need to get your foot in the door, and it is true. It is very difficult to do it just based on the certifications, and you need to be able to show that you know how to apply that knowledge.
Mm. Well, I just want to say a giant thank you from the WiCyS community and all the viewers for taking some time out of your day, Ina, to host this webinar. It is greatly appreciated. The rest of the questions are thanks from viewers saying that great information and they really appreciate all of everything. As a reminder, viewers, if you would like to continue the conversation, you can please feel free to connect with Ina on LinkedIn. I'll put that slide up again really quick just so you have it. You can see her LinkedIn information. And with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and wherever you're joining us, a good evening, good afternoon, good morning. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I would like to thank WiCyS for this opportunity to speak and connect with a wide audience, and in general for supporting women in cybersecurity.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again, and have a great day, everyone.
All right, thank you, Rosalie.
Bye, Ina.